Hi everyone, welcome back to my messy desk. Today we have another segment for pockets where we're going to work on filling the first pocket. Today I have my tarot deck, Tarot for All Ages, illustrated by Elizabeth Heidel. I have the journal that we made, and I have the reflection that I wrote about the environment that I grew up in, specifically the small town and just the little snippets that came through as I was reminiscing about that. I'm using a Uniball Vision Elite pen because I like how wet the ink is. I don't use fountain pens just because I find them a pain to try and fill up. So I'm going through my reflection and I'm going to circle things that kind of stand out to me. I am going to pick words that I'm going to reflect on in the art that I make. I think blue shed is one of the things that I am circling, and friends and freedom, escape, big spider. There's kind of a theme here that comes through, and just this idea, like when I was a kid, I grew up in a really small town and I dreamt a lot about not running away, but living in a bigger city and having more things around me and more culture, being exposed to a lot more things than just a small town surrounded by a bunch of cornfields. So I'm just listing out here the things that I circled, which was blue shed, giant spider, escape, friends, freedom, and destiny. It doesn't necessarily need to be like something completely verbatim. Like there might be some words as you go through the different prompts throughout this entire journey where you feel called to like delve deeply into each individual word. And I think, as I said in the intro, like include some etymology about it or include the definitions. Right now, I have some very visceral feelings about the themes that have come up. The idea of like wanting to move away from this small town that I grew up in. It's a kind of a cliche trope that we see in a lot of media, books and movies, and we hear about in songs about a girl living in a small town who wants to move on to bigger and better things. And I kind of always internalized that as me. And even though I did end up moving away, I never moved away to a big town other than, we moved to Cincinnati after my son was born. But that was for a short time, and I was a stay-at-home mom. So I certainly wasn't out finding opportunities and embracing the culture. I guess the idea is that our life doesn't always turn out the way that we envisioned it, even though that is not a bad thing. It's not always a good thing. It's kind of just one of those ideas that we have to accept. I've been learning a lot about the way I need to approach surrender. So what I'm doing here is I decided that I do want to keep some of the writings. I'm going to keep this writing specifically and folding it up into like a little booklet. And I've been super into reading people's comics that they draw on Substack. I'm not a super confident drawer. I definitely have more childlike, like stick figures and funky pictures, but that is the style that I like. And so I am I'm going to draw like little cartoons that open up as it unfolds. So this first one is me daydreaming in school. It says escape. It says all I wanted. And now I'm feeling the urge to pull a tarot card to go along with this, just to see where I want this to go next and to see kind of what themes come up. I chose just because some of the prompts for the pockets journey is nostalgic, and like this one specifically is looking at childhood. And because I love this deck, I just don't use it in my personal practice, so I don't mind that it gets tucked away in this journal. It's a deck for children, and it felt really appropriate, and I love the illustrations. Elizabeth Heidel is a huge influence on my art journey, and I love their work. So I am going to pull a card. I barely even use this deck just because it's just not one that I pull out. And the Sage of Swords is what I got. And instinctively connecting with the air quality that comes along with swords, and also the fact that I drew a cloud and there are clouds in the background of the image, and just the focus that the character has. And just for kind of reflection's sake, I am going to refer to the guidebook and read through it here. This is really the only thing that stuck out to me was look at where you have come from and where you are going. That's really what stuck out to me in terms of relating to what it is that I'm working on in this project. And it's really a version of that, looking at where I've come from, looking at how far I've come, looking at where I'm going. Where do I want to go? How much control do I have over where I go? So I highlighted that little passage. After this is all said and done, I'll probably have some cards left and then like a book highlighted with some of the passages, and we'll see what I do with it from there. I always pick up card decks when I'm at like antique shops or vintage shops. This one had not even been shuffled before, and I'm not a great shuffler, even though I'm a tarot reader. So just, you get to watch me struggle for a couple minutes. And so I got the Six of Clubs, and right off the bat, the Six of Clubs isn't something that's super significant for me, but that's not necessarily why I'm working with the playing cards. They're a great medium for what I want to do as far as, making things to put in pockets. So I opened up my journal here. You can tell I did some more stitching on the little closure wrap there. And I might do some more. It's very therapeutic. And so I've been enjoying that practice when I feel called to do it. And here I'm going to work on the next portion of my comic, which is based on the word friends. One of the things that was huge for me in childhood, I lived in the same small town until I was about 10, when we had finally finished building a house in the bigger town about 15 minutes away, and I had to switch schools. So from kindergarten until I turned 10, I had been with the same small group of people my entire life in school. It doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, like a lot of kids go through transitions, but I was undiagnosed ADHD, and I was very just uncomfortable as it was, and I had a great support system in that I knew these kids that I went to school with for so many years that it was actually it was really stable for me in that environment, and I found myself really uncomfortable outside of the school that I had originally gone to. I'm also writing about how friends make it better, but it's really hard to find friends now. I'm a stay-at-home mom in a small rural town. I don't have a lot of time to myself. I'm not a drinker, so I don't go to any type of like social activities like that include drinking because I'm sober from active addiction. And so it really limits my options. And other than a couple childhood friends and people I've met over the years who I stay in contact with when I'm able to, but everyone's busy, I don't have a whole lot of friends. I would say probably outside of my immediate family, my sister is my best friend. And now I'm just adding some water to like smudge it up and make it look a little bit like, I don't know, messier. I like messy. I am taking a sketchbooking course from Louis Rossignol and Rossignol. Sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. But I really liked just the fun look of things getting all smudged up, and so I have been incorporating that more into my work. And then as we unfold, I knew this was going to be kind of as the last piece. It's going to be a mouth kind of screaming. It sounds pretty intense, but that is kind of how it feels when you live in a situation where you feel like you don't have any control and you don't have any say, and the seconds of your life are just ticking by, and you just feel stuck, and you don't feel seen, and you don't feel as though you're appreciated, and you don't know how anything will ever change. I was a really quiet kid, but this was how it felt a lot of the time. I had a hard time with social interactions and knowing when I would be able to like speak in conversations. I struggle with small talk. And so just being in this scenario where I'm in this environment that feels like it doesn't fit me, or maybe like I don't fit within it. And then on top of that, like feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And just wanting like freedom from feeling that way. And so that is why this particular page of my little comic is just an internal scream, or the representation of an internal scream. Like I said, I was a quiet kid, so screaming about it and making a stink about things is not what I did. That's very much how I am now. I'm a people pleaser, and so this is therapeutic for me. On this last little bit on the back, I am adding a portion about the blue shed, how I like to hide in the blue shed. I actually didn't go in the blue shed a whole lot. It was just a storage shed for like all of the yard work stuff, mowers and that kind of thing. So as you can imagine, especially in the country, there is a lot of spiders. I was kind of terrified of being inside of it. I remember hiding behind it. I had an obsession with clubhouses when I was a kid. I'm also putting how I like to hide in the pine tree. I don't know if it was a pine tree, but it was of that variety. And it had really low, like it had branches that went almost all the way to the ground. And it was my neighbor's tree. They lived right next door to us, and we lived at the top of the hill overlooking the highway and the airport, this teeny tiny airport. And so the neighbors were an elderly couple, and they did not mind me playing in their yard. I would pretend to excavate dinosaur fossils from their gravel driveway. I would pretend that they had a dandelion factory because their backyard was completely filled with dandelions. And I would like to pick them when they were yellow, and obviously when they were little white puffballs, I would pick one and blow on it to try to make a wish. And they had this pine tree, and that because there weren't a lot of trees around this area to climb, because it's mainly farmland. They're like sitting in between the branches because they were so low. It felt like kind of like a clubhouse, which felt really special. So this is the pocket page that I'm working on, and I'm actually going to draw a very messy Posca pen version of the blue barn. I'm struggling because I got some new art materials, and Posca markers are not something I work with a whole lot other than like for accent, but I'm trying to get comfortable using different mixed media material, especially like for drawing, and just I really enjoy messy looking art. And I'm sure if you're familiar with my art journaling or any of the art that I make, I'm sure that you are aware of that. So I'm using some markers and materials here that I'm not comfortable with, but pushing myself out of my comfort zone is also a form of therapy with this. It helps me to get more comfortable in being agile in situations where I don't always know what the outcome is going to be. And it also helps me let go of perfectionism, which I think if you are a creative person, you probably also struggle with an inner critic who would rather you not create because why bother if it's not going to be perfect? And so we just don't say anything to that. We ignore that. Usually when my seasonal depression is particularly bad in the depths of winter, I might listen to that and stop making art. But I find that as long as I make a little bit of art every single day, it does a lot better for me and those around me as a result. I decided that I should let the barn dry for a little bit before I try to add any more accents to it. I was starting to rub away some of the paper there, and like I said, I'm not very used to using Posca markers, so I'm using my playing card here, and I thought it would be a good way to represent the big spider. I live in central rural Illinois. I'm not super familiar with the different species of spiders that we have here, but I don't believe we have like a giant head-sized spider here. I might be wrong. Part of me wonders if this is a joke that my dad played on me. Part of me wonders if I just had a dream about this and it kind of got mixed in and became a memory. But it is like something that is very vivid whenever I think of my childhood. In this particular house, it comes up is this giant yellow spider just chilling on the outside of our blue house. And I'm not representing the spider as yellow here because I don't think that's particularly important. It's almost like this landmark in time that helps me, like it tethers me to that time and place and helps me look back and see other portions of the setting in my mind's eye. If that sounds weird, I can explain further. I have some memory issues between the ADHD and years of alcohol abuse and just getting older. I do have some issues with my memory, and so there's a lot from my childhood that just kind of like slips through my fingers. It feels like I have a memory there, and then it's just I can't pull anything to the surface. And so the big spider feels like something that helps me envision my house that I grew up in during a very specific time of year, during a very specific time in my life. It was a time where I felt, as I've said previously, that I felt uncomfortable and I felt out of place, and I felt like I couldn't wait to be a grown-up so that I could be accepted and be in charge of my own life, because I felt like I could handle things better, and that might have just been some of my own personal fears coming to the surface and trying to protect me. Ultimately, the big spider feels like an important landmark in time. So I am going to make a little talisman here of it. I am using a piece of painted paper. It was a painting I was working on. I was not happy with it, and then I ripped it. So now it's collage fodder. So I am ripping it up to be the spider, and I didn't think about it originally because I'd like to add packing tape over my collage cards. If you've seen my Oracle deck, that's what I've been, instead of laminating them, I put packing tape over them. I think Megan and the Moon maybe showed me that trick on their channel, but I don't remember. I definitely started working with packing tape because of the packing tape scrap roll that they shared. Regardless, I really like the way that this turned out with the legs hanging off of it, with the really long spider legs. So I have to improvise now, which I think is a good thing. It's something that I do a lot, and it's how I end up with such interesting finished pieces and interesting finished journals. I'm taking another collage that I was not happy with, and I painted over it. I was going to use it as the base for a new mixed media piece. I ripped it in half so that it would fit in the pocket. And now I'm going to glue the card to the center of it, and then I can decorate around the spider and on the back of that page. Again, this is not what I planned originally to do. I had kind of a loose idea in my head of what I wanted to do. And this is where things kind of took a turn, but I ended up being really happy with how they turned out. And what's really interesting here is that it feels like the way it all comes together is exactly how it is meant to come together. And that's part of one of the reasons I love art journaling, especially in this way, because you are like pulling at these little tiny threads and then following along and seeing where it takes you. It's like picking up breadcrumbs on a trail and kind of seeing what comes up visually and mentally. And so I think the way that this ends up turning out is really interesting. I decided that I wanted to add some more writing. What happens a lot when I'm art journaling is that even when I'm using oracle cards, even when I've already journaled about something, because this all started from an original journal piece where we asked about the environment we grew up in, and we journaled about it. And then we took pieces from that to create the journal pieces that were going to go in the pocket. But I'm making this big spider and I'm thinking, what web am I spinning right now? And that feels like an important question. It might be the next prompt. Well, honestly, we'll see. I'm thinking that that's the next prompt because I do want this to be not solely a project that's focused on the past. I want it to be something that also roots us into the present. So if you are planning to do this work along with me, kind of our jumping off point for the next pocket is going to be journaling about what web or webs am I spinning right now, and kind of give that a think and journal about that, and we will work on that for the next video. Here I am looking for something specific, but I don't really know what it is. I have a lot of ephemera here. I have some lovely folks that have sent me return mail from my experiment about, I did the art project and experiment in caring, where I sent art mail out to folks for a small donation of their choosing, and a lot of folks sent stuff back. And I have a lot of ephemera that I get to use in my art journals for that. And I am very honored that people wanted to participate in that project. This piece specifically stuck out to me because of the fact it's a bed covered in fiber art, and not just fiber art. I don't know if it's knit or crochet, I couldn't tell, but it's very colorful. And one of the things that becoming an artist or stepping into my true artist nature has taught me is that I love bright colors. I still don't wear bright colors. We haven't quite gotten that comfortable yet in our own skin, but when I crochet and when I knit and when I make art, I tend towards brighter colors. Not all the time, it depends on my mood, but I do love color. I just think that if we're turning to art, especially in times that can be very difficult, this is 2025, the year of difficult things so far, that art should bring a smile to our face and should make us feel hopeful. And what feels more hopeful than a rainbow? So I chose this partially because of the color, but also because I'm trying to crochet some colorful pieces for my own house right now. I've been trying to crochet curtains for my front windows that lead to my front porch, where I'm actually recording this voiceover. But that is a very long work in progress. I also remembered while I was doing this that the original person who tried to teach me how to crochet, the first person who ever bought me a crochet hook, was my grandma, Jean. She died when I was 11 from lung cancer because she was a smoker. I am ashamed of the fact that I ended up smoking for 10 years myself while I was drinking obsessively. I know that if she had been around, she would have knocked some sense into me. But it felt during this, as we're reminiscing about this specific childhood home and this specific time, my grandma, who lived in Alabama, but I still felt very close to, she was still alive around that time. And I only got to see her 1 week a year when we went down there for spring break. They had a playhouse in their backyard, which was filled with lizards and spiders because it's Alabama. And I just thought it was so cool. It was a little space that I claimed as my own because I just wanted that. I wanted that space. I also wasn't allowed to have pets as a kid, so I remember obsessively thinking that I should try to capture one of the lizards and bring it home with me, which is crazy because I'm terrified of lizards. So that never happened, but my grandma's also one of the people who I felt like she actually saw me and maybe understood a little bit about what I was going through and how disconnected I felt. And I just felt like, out of everybody, I felt like she genuinely loved me. And that was a very hard knowledge to tap into as a kid. When you feel super lonely and when you feel super disconnected from people, it's really difficult. So on the back of that card, I put the images of that crochet headboard, the freestyle crochet headboard, which I'm kind of like obsessed with and want to try to do something similar in my own home. And I wrote about how my grandma is the first one who taught me how to crochet. Here I'm adding just some flower stickers. The barn looks nice. I opted for a gray paint marker, just because it was showing up better. The blue stayed wet for a very long time. Around the barn, I wrote just in Sharpie, both scary and comfortable. That's kind of what the blue shed, I called it the blue barn. It was a shed. The blue shed represented being both scared and comfortable. Then I have this little butterfly tag that I got in some Patreon mail from Love Rain Journals. And I wrote, in my memory, it is always spring. And I wanted to try to attach it to the card, but I didn't have my stapler with me. And ultimately, I think just putting them in the pocket as they are serves the purpose, because having it there is what it's there for. So I just opted to put all of it in there. And then the last bit that I'm going to do is, since I did get the spider onto a larger card so that nothing was hanging off the edge, I am going to laminate it with some packing tape. It looks kind of silly, and there's way better ways to do this, but I love the way the packing tape feels. And so when I flip through this journal, I want it to be satisfying, both looking through the art and seeing the visuals and reading the words and the sensations of touch, the tactile feeling of holding the laminated card and flipping the pages. I want all of that to be satisfactory and to mean something. And so doing this, that's just where I am. I also laminated the cover of the journal that I made for this, so with packing tape. So that's just where I'm at in my creative journey. It's something that I save specifically for my altered playing cards and my art journaling, but it is enjoyable and fun, and my kids enjoy doing it for some of the things they make as well. And I'm just going to cut this out so that I can place it with all the other little pieces that I've made and collected for this first pocket. I am really happy with the path that this line of questioning and this line of pondering brought me down, because it brought up a lot of memories, and it helped me to make some really cool art that was out of my comfort zone and is is giving me the opportunity to be vulnerable in this space with all of you, which is ultimately good for me because we're all in this together, right? So I'm going to start putting everything in the pocket now. I am going to mention that I am back on Instagram for now, purely just because life is lonely, and I enjoy the artists that I connected with there, but I am trying to be more mindful of it, so I will not be as available to answer DMs and comments like I always have been. That said, you can follow me there at Starmoth Creates. I have my Substack, Contemplative Creativity, which I just kind of talk about all of this, and that's where I'm sharing these videos as well. And my Ko-Fi shop has some original paintings for sale. Some Oracle art readings are still pay what you wish, starting at $11. And a lot of the stuff I have is pay as you wish, starting at a very low price threshold. So thanks for coming.